apologizing because I should have sent out a poll just to find out how busy you were. I realized that many of you might be taken with other tasks. You might be taken up with other tasks, as well as perhaps some of you are. We had a very we had a short break, and maybe some of you have extended that break, and therefore it was definitely unwise of me not consulting the entire class, finding out if you are available. But nevertheless, I will leave a short recording for tonight's session. I'm going to touch on a couple of points that I believe might not have been clear if you have gone through either your notes or the lectures that I sent out. So the series, if you recall, you have a 4-part series that I advise every one of you to go through, right? So if part 1 and part 2 will be easy, just speed it up. Each part is only 15 minutes, so it should take you not long to cover all the 4 parts of the series that I sent out for Learning Unit 4, right? And the idea is just to give you a lecture, is to give you an overall view of your entire learning unit, right? So that when you begin to read, you have already an idea, and that will speed up your readings, all right? But as you know, when you are going through the lectures, please open either your textbook. If you have a physical textbook, please open either your textbook or your virtual textbook that I've shared with you. So in your notes, right, you have Learning Unit 4, right? So then you can follow the lecture, right? Otherwise, you might not be quite clear what is happening, but the idea is for you to follow the lecture, right? Please, if you're listening to this recording, I know we're halfway. Remember, we have almost now, we have covered 4 learning units. We have only 3 learning units that are remaining, and those learning units, like I said, would be advanced learning unit. But you don't need to worry. That doesn't mean they are very difficult. No. In fact, learning unit 5 will be the only one who will be longer than learning unit 6 and 7. But most of the things that you're going to do after learning unit 5 will be based almost on learning unit 5, right? So the core, if I can say, will be learning unit 5, and then you're going to build on learning unit 5, learning unit 6, and learning unit 7, right? So your test is coming very soon. It is in 2 weeks. I have shared with you, as you are aware, I've shared with you already enough. So if you would give me a second, I'm just going to go quickly to your test prep 2, and you have access to all of this, right? So I've given you enough past papers for you to prepare, right? So these past papers will allow you to see or to have an idea what you should expect for your task 2, right? So that when you take your task 2, you are not shocked or in disbelief, right? So this is to provide you already an idea of what you're going to encounter, right? So I would advise you then, since you are writing in 2 weeks, please do not waste time. And I know that you might have other tasks for the other modules, right? But just make sure that you spare enough time, right, for practicing as well as your learning units 3 and 4, right? Because you remember that your test 2 will be on learning unit 2 and 3 and 4, right? It would be quite good, and I don't know if we're going to be able to do that, but just to cover learning unit 5, just before you write your test, because some of the things in learning unit 5 will allow you even to understand better learning unit 4, but we will see. But you have more than enough. You have more than enough to do your work, and to do your part, right? So if you have questions, please write them down. And I understand this time is quite a busy time, right? I hope that you've been doing your as tasks. So every time you are covering a learning unit, that you have also been attempting the as tasks. Please complete all the as tasks, because these are free marks that you've been provided, you've been given, right? So it wouldn't be wise actually to lose those marks, right? So every time you finish a learning unit, just ensure that you are also completing the respective as ICE task. All right, so now let's go quickly. I'm just going to touch on a couple of points, but you have the lectures. And not only that, I'm going to add, I did not want to give you too many lectures and tutorials, and share that with you, right? Because I don't want you to be confused. So that's the reason why I first started by the lectures, and then I will share the tutorials also with you. But I would like really that once you've done your part, that I may see questions that you are asking in case there's something that you are not understanding properly. Right. So when we were covering the CVP, if you remember this section, the CVP analysis, right? So we covered concepts. So in your part 4 of the lecture series that I sent you, in your part 4, I'm covering the concept in CVP analysis, right? CVP analysis, which is cost, volume, and profit analysis. Right. So this is quite important. It will come definitely, most definitely in your test, in your task 2, as well as in your final written exam. And I've seen many students, unfortunately, because of the lack of preparation, have struggled with these questions that are very, very, very easy. One of the things that I noticed, that when I wrote some of the notes here, maybe it could bring a little bit of confusion, right? But I added few other elements, and just want to make sure that when you come at this stage that you understand very well what, because this was about the marginal income. So the idea is that the marginal income would be used to cover the fixed cost. And I did explain why the fixed cost is something, even when we do uh, the breakdown, the break even, sorry, the break even point, when we are looking for the break even point, either in units or in sales revenue, right? Even at that stage, when we are looking for the break-even point, you will see that we are using the total fixed cost. You would ask me the question, why are we using the total fixed cost? Why not perhaps the total variable cost, right? Because things like rent, electricity, which are your fixed costs, right? There's perhaps more than that. There's perhaps your insurance and all that. Everything that is your fixed cost, right, needs to be paid whether you are making sales or not, whether you are actually even doing any sales, right? So you still needs to pay your rent and electricity, right? So, for example, for your rent, the landlord will not give you a break just because you decided not to sell your product. You see, the landlord is not concerned. The contract that you have with your landlord is simply stating how much you need to pay for rent, right? It's not conditional on if you can do sales or not, right? So these are things that needs to be paid, right? The fixed cost. And that's the reason why once we have covered the fixed cost, then we can look at the variable cost and the profits somehow, you know, because the fixed cost has been covered, right? So either we are breaking even. So as soon as we cover the fixed cost, especially with the marginal income, you know, as soon as we have covered the fixed cost, then we are now going to make profit. That basically the part where now you begin to make profit. And I think this particular graph, if I can find it, the graph. Okay, even here there is a graph. If you see in this graph here, there is the fixed cost here. Do you see the fixed cost is just a line? All right. The total cost will be the addition of the fixed cost with the variable cost, right? That will give us what the total revenue. This is not quite clear. Let me look for another graph for you, but it is in your textbook. Just open, right. So on page 109, you do have a graph there, right? Remember, in your lectures, I've covered this part, right? You do have this graph here. If you look, the fixed cost in yellow, you see this line is for the fixed cost, right? It's constant. It doesn't change. It's a fixed cost, right? That's the meaning actually of it. It's fixed cost. It's like your rent and all that. You know the rental amounts that you need to pay. You know the rental insurance that you need to pay. It's a fixed cost, isn't it? All right? It can increase, like we said, over a certain period of time, right? Because the rent can go up a little bit, right? Your insurance can go up a little bit. Just like you saw with the VAT increase, already your insurance was sending you a message to say that we are going to increase your insurance, right? Luckily, the Treasury has just scrapped that, right? But the idea is that it's going to increase, but it's going to increase over a certain period of time, right? So, but you can see it is still fixed. It's a fixed line, right? The total fixed cost will take the variable, but when you see the variable cost starts from zero. So if you are producing nothing, there is no fixed cost that you are incurring. But as soon as you start producing, the more you're producing, the more you are incurring fixed costs, right? So these two, the fixed cost and, the more you are incurring the variable cost, right? So the variable cost, it is this green light, right? You see the green light? So if you add the green light plus the yellow light, that's what gives you the total fixed cost, right? You see the total fixed cost, which the orange line, right? So, but one thing that you need to be cognizant about, we need to cover these fixed costs so that we can start seeing whether we're going to make a profit or a loss. And actually, I do have also another tutorial, a short tutorial also that touches on, I think, this question particularly. But you can see, for example, your total revenue. Your total revenue is here. This line here is your total revenue. Your total cost curve is here. You see, from A to E and upward, right? You see this line here. Let me see if I can point that to you quite clearly. Do you see this line here? You see this line? That's your total variable cost or your total cost, you see. So you have your total fixed cost. Once again, repeat again to you. This is your total fixed cost. In case you're not seeing it properly. I am actually, let me look for actually a marker here. There you go. You see this line here is the line of your fixed cost, right? For your revenue, sorry, for your variable cost, this is the line for your variable cost. You see that, all right? So the addition of these two lines gives you your total cost. The total cost. You see this line here? That's your total cost. But you say, well, why do you need? Yeah, you are adding all the cost. So if you are adding all the cost, you are adding the fixed cost, and the variable cost gives you what? The total cost. The fixed cost plus the variable cost gives you your total cost, right? But now see the line for the revenue. Okay, I'm going to give you a line here for the revenue. So this line here, if you are not selling anything, you are also not getting any revenue. So that's the reason why it starts from zero. But whether you are selling something or you are selling nothing, it does not matter because you still need to pay your rent. You still need to cover your fixed cost, right? But here it is. You see this line here? It's going up here, this line. So this is your total revenue, right? So I'm going to show you also something that you need to keep in mind. So every time you think about this, do you see the total revenue is, there's an intersection between the total revenue and the total cost. Do you see that? All right, so there is an intersection here. The total revenue, sorry, the total cost, yeah, sorry, my bad, and the total revenue. There's an intersection, they meet somewhere. This E, do you see the E there? That's the break even, right? So when your total revenue equals your total cost, you have, that's basically your break even. The total revenue, it is in your notes and all that, and I provide visuals for that. Your total revenue equals your total cost, thus is your break even. All right? So meaning that you've covered all the cost. So you have generated enough revenue to cover all your costs. That's all that it means. You have generated enough revenue to cover all your costs. So I hope that that is clear to you, right? Now, everything beyond this. So if you go beyond this, you're starting to make profit. So that's the reason why I'm showing you this here, right? To say to you, this is where you begin to make profit. Everything here is a profit zone because you have already covered your cost. Everything beyond that is your profit. So this is important for me to go back to what I was explaining here. So be careful here with this marginal income. So what is therefore the marginal income? The marginal income is basically if you take your variable cost out, right? So if you take your variable cost out, right? So that's the reason for if we have to go at the level of a unit, not at the entire total revenue, but just for a single unit, right? If you take the variable cost out, what you're going to be left with is the marginal income. That's basically how you understand the marginal income. If you take from your price, the price that you charge, let's say maybe you charged a price of 300 Rand, okay? Let's say that the variable cost is 100 Rand. So 300 Rand minus 100 Rand equals 200 Rand. So that 200 Rand is your marginal income. I hope that that's clear, right? So this marginal income is important because it's going to help us cover the fixed cost. So that's why I'm putting these two together. So the fixed cost plus some profit, right? Plus the profit equals the marginal income. So I have to write it this way so that you understand. What I don't want you to make them, because you might easily make the mistake of saying that the fixed cost equals the marginal income. No, the fixed cost is not your marginal income, right? The fixed cost is not your marginal income, right? So I hope that this is clear. And this example that is provided to you is a very good example. Here is the example, right? Remember the same example we did up there. We repeat the same example so that you can follow through, right? But remember the first step of your CVP analysis. So when we ask you to do a CVP analysis, the first step is for you to find your variable cost per unit. That's the first thing you need to do, the variable cost per unit. But what you need to do, so if you remember this has come back again, right? But there is this classification that you need to do before you finalize this question, right? You have to find the fixed costs and you have to find the variable cost. So it's very important for you when you are reading. For example, wood used in production, right? Wood used in production, that's a variable cost, right? Direct labor, variable cost, right? Factory supervisor's wage, obviously that is a fixed cost, right? Rental for the factory, obviously it's rent. That is a fixed cost, right? Rate and taxes, that is a fixed cost. Sales representative commissions? No, it's depend on the amount of sales they're going to make. So that's a variable cost. Remember, the variable cost increase relative to the number of units sold. The fixed cost it's not concerned whatsoever with the number of units produced or sold. Advertising cost, of course, that's a fixed cost, right? Assistant salary relating JSS. That's 1,000 rand, right? That's a fixed cost, right? Glues and nails, okay, polish. These are variable costs, right? They depend, you buy them in function of the number of units that you are working on, right? So I hope that that's clear, right? Short-term insurance, that's a fixed cost, right? So when you add up all the fixed costs, you get to 20,000, right? But remember the variable cost is 322. Here it is, 322, 322,600, right? Do you see that, okay? The fixed cost is only 20,000 rand. How many units are you producing? You know the number of units that you have to sell, produce and sell is 200, right? So then you take the total variable cost divided by 200, it gives you this. This is what? This is your marginal income. Marginal income. And what did we say about the marginal income? That the marginal income will contain a profit, the profit, plus what? Plus your fixed cost, because your marginal income must cover your fixed cost. Do you see that? Profit, that's not a good P, so I'm just saying profit plus the fixed cost, right? But we remove the variable cost, right? And that makes sense. So when we have, for example, to calculate the break-even, remember when we calculate the break-even, we need to know what is the total fixed cost. And we divide it by what? By the marginal income. Here is our marginal income, right? This is our marginal income. Sorry, this is the marginal, what am I saying? Apologies. This is the marginal cost. Sincere apologies. This is the marginal cost. This is the marginal cost. Right? Remember, we are trying to find out the total variable cost divided by the number of units. Now we know the variable cost per unit. My sincere apologies. Very sincere apologies. So we know now the variable cost per unit. The variable cost per unit is going to help us when we are looking for what? We are looking for the marginal income. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take the price. Remember again, because we came from here. We came from here. That's what I was sharing with you here. You take the price. Within the price, you will have the variable cost per unit, right? And the fixed cost per unit, and you will have some profit in it, right? And we say that this was your marginal income, right? The fixed cost plus some profit, because your marginal income must cover your fixed cost, must cover. If it's covering it, it means it must be more than your fixed cost in order for you to make a profit, right? So it must cover your entire fixed cost, right? So we're saying if you take the price minus the variable fixed cost, a variable cost per unit. Variable cost per unit will give you the marginal income. And that's exactly what they did here. Let's go back here. On this example, look at what they did. They took the price, which is 3,000, because that's the price that is given per unit that will be sold, right? 3,000 minus the variable cost per unit that we calculated here. This variable cost per unit, right? Variable cost per unit. Make it, again, quite easy for you. So this is a variable cost per unit. Sorry that it takes a bit of a while, but that's your variable cost per unit. So I hope that this is clear. So we have the total variable cost divided by the number of units that we are producing and that we're going to sell, right? Gives us the variable cost per unit. We take the price. What is the price? The price is 3,000 Rand. We take this 3,000 Rand minus the variable cost per unit, right? Which we found. This will give us the marginal income. This marginal income is supposed to cover even the fixed cost, all right? In fact, it is important. Why are we talking about the fixed cost here? Because if we want to find out the break-even points in unit, we're going to take the total fixed cost, which is, total fixed cost is 20,000. 20,000 divided by what? By the marginal income. So that will give us, when we reach this number of units, we would have broken even. We would be already at the break even, right? Because at this level, at this exact juncture, we would have covered the total. You remember the break even is when the total cost equals the total revenue. So I hope that this is clear. Okay. And by the way, if you take these 2,000, right? We have this 20,000. Sorry, my bad. Not 2,000. If you take the 20,000 for the total fixed cost, it is the total fixed cost, right? 20,000. If you take this 20,000 divided by the number of units that we are producing and we need to sell, which is 200, gives you what? So the total fixed cost per unit equals 200 Rand. Okay. So how much, if we deduct from the 3,000, right? We have 3,000 minus the 1,613, right? Which is our variable cost per unit, right? This is our variable cost per unit. So if we take this, what is remaining, which is the marginal income. So we took the selling price or the price, 3,000 minus 1,613 gives us 1,387. And this is our marginal income. What did we say about the marginal income? The marginal income must cover the fixed cost. As you can see, the marginal income here is greater, right? The marginal income of 1,387 is greater than the 200. It's greater. So it's covering it. So if it's cover, we know that the rest is profit. It's part of our gross profit, right? So if you retrench, oh so sorry, you deduct the 200 rand, you will be left with 1,287. So we know that this is good. This we are looking at profit here. Looking at profit per unit, great profit per unit. All right. So very, 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 very important, right? Very important. So if we need now to find the number actually in rand, so not in units, in rand, we need to take the total fixed cost divided by the marginal income ratio. You know how to calculate the marginal income ratio, right? You take the marginal income divided by the selling price, which is that 3,000 rand. That will give you the marginal income ratio, right? So practice these things. So like I said, this was a very, very important point to ensure that when you are doing your practice, you are not confused, right? My bad, because I made a bit of a mistake here, of a blunder, sorry, when I was talking about the marginal income. This is not the marginal income. This is the variable cost per unit, right? So, but I've rectified that for you. It's quite clear. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. So that will be it for this session. I'm going to leave the recording. I'm not going to cover too much so that you are not bombarded with too many things that you will need to cover, right? But as soon as you start to practice, you'll be able to ask more questions. So I'm wishing you all the best in your practice.